Coach Janine at Whole Body Health. I wanted to talk this morning about external rotation of the hip. So external rotation of the hip, that is this position here where it rolls out to the side. So if you've ever had trouble sitting in a cross-legged pose, getting into pigeon pose, this one here, getting down into a deep squat where those hips need to kind of get out of the way for you to get down into the squat. This is these moves are a great thing for you to do to try to open up the hips, release some of the tissue that's restricting those hips from moving like they should. If a lot of times we ignore the fact that we can't get into cross-legged pose or pigeon pose for that matter, it just doesn't work for me. And that might be the case. It might not work for you. But using, especially the cross-legged pose, which used to be known as Indian style, right? I don't think they're allowed to call it that anymore, but it's Indian style for all of us older people, cross-legged pose for the younger generation. When they say, oh, I just can't do that, my hips just don't do that. Well, they do that. We just need to work at getting there, especially as adults, right? As adults, we have done a lot of damage to our body, and we need to kind of reverse that, so to speak, right? So I'm going to show you a couple different ways. I've got several different tools we're going to use here today because I want to show you some different ways to address things, not only from an intensity standpoint, but tools are meant to be used in different ways, right? So the foam roller has a very different effect on tissue as your lacrosse ball, or as this big ball here, or this kind of roller here. So they all have a purpose, and I use them a lot and talk about, well, if you want more intensity, yes, that is correct, but they also have different purposes, right? So they can get into different areas. The foam roller can't get into areas like the lacrosse ball can. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start with a lacrosse ball or with a tennis ball. Again, the tennis ball is going to be giving you a little less intensity than the lacrosse ball. Sometimes it is a little too intense to just jump right into this, but you'll get the idea. So first we're going to address the glutes. Okay, so the glutes, we have several different glute muscles back here. Today we're going to address the glute minimus and medius, which are kind of the top area and the side glute here. They're stabilizing muscles for lack of the scientific explanation. So we're going to take this and we're going to lay on our back and we're going to kind of shift the hips to the side. And I'm going to stick that ball right underneath here. Hopefully you guys can see where it's at. And I'm just going to kind of relax. So to help my body relax, since I can't fully relax this leg here that I'm on, doing this, we kind of put the glute in a different position than I want it for this stretch. So what I want to do is take my foam roller, or you can take a blanket or a pillow, and I'm going to use that to kind of prop up the knee. So that puts the knee in the proper position I want to address those glutes back there. So I'm just running right along the edge here, right above below the hip bone. So I'm not on the bony part, and I'm just kind of hanging out, looking for different areas that are tender. Tenderness usually means there's something going on there, right? Some kind of restriction. And I'm just using my breath to relax. Just kind of working that area. Definitely finding some good stuff in there. So of course I chose my left hip to start and to demo this on. This is definitely a side that I am challenged with that external rotation. Definitely a little tighter on this left side than my right side. My right side I have no problem externally rotating, in fact to a fault, because sometimes it rotates a little more than I would like it to when I do certain things. But that's a whole nother issue, not for today. So I'm just going to kind of spend some time working that whole area, and I'm kind of turning sideways a little bit so I can get the side area. It's definitely really tight in there, finding some good stuff. So for sake of time, I'm not going to do the whole amount of time you would spend on it. Anywhere, say between 1 and 2 minutes per side. So working on that whole area. And again, where I was working at is this area right across here. Okay, so we've got the bone part of the hip. Ball's running away. Bony part of the hip that comes up at the top. We want to hit right across this area here. So glute medius area. So it's important to release that area there. Okay, so the next area we're going to go into is the IT band. And I know everyone loves the IT band. If you are familiar with foam rolling, you've probably done your IT band. I'm going to tell you right now, I know there's people who would not agree with me. Stop rolling the IT band. Say that very vehemently. Do not roll on top of the IT band. If you want to take your hands and kind of press down it, that's great. Like I said, I know there's gonna be people who disagree with me. Making change on that IT band itself for the amount of pain you feel doing it is very minimal. What I'm gonna tell you to do today is we want to, yes, work the IT band, but we're gonna do it a different way. We wanna separate the IT band from that lateral hamstring, so the back side here, and then the quad. So this whole area here gets really jumbled up and stuck, which can affect the way this hip rotates. So we want to address that. So we're going to first use the roller, and we're going to come down and go right along that back edge. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. Is I'm not on the IT band itself. I'm on the back edge where I'm kind of on the back of the leg and kind of on the IT band. I'm just kind of working that area. Okay, and sliding forward and backward. And yes, it's really, really sore over here. Okay, and I'm gonna make it all the way down. If I go all the way down, you're gonna lose me in the screen. But you get the idea here, okay? So we're gonna go all the way down this side angle here to address that IT band. Okay, we're also gonna get right in this section here. Once you roll that, you'll know what I mean. So getting down on the roller, okay, getting on that area and kind of open it up here. You'll find some nice good stuff right at the top of that shin, on the outside of that shin, okay? That's the first step to releasing that IT band and that hamstring connection where it overlaps. The other one is the quad IT band connection, right? So that where it overlaps in the front of the leg. So same thing. See if I can find a different angle here so I can give you guys different views. I guess we'll go, this is probably still the best angle. So coming down, I'm gonna start up high, okay, right at the top of the hip. So I'm on the other side, I'm up in here, okay? So this is your TFL. This is one area where the IT band comes into. Very tender on most people. So I'm gonna grab that spot there. I'm just gonna kind of iron it out. Again, for sake of time, I'm gonna move through this. Okay, now I'm on the edge, so I'm not on on the side of my leg, on the IT band directly. I'm on that front edge of the IT band where it comes right over into that quad area. And lots of good stuff in there again today too. So, and then slowly you'd make your way all the way down to the knee. So you don't have to just leg with a straight leg. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But you can also use that straight leg that you're working on and bend the knee and scrub side to side. Oh, which feels great. Okay, and really work those tissues. Bend and straighten that leg. You can kind of go back and forth, kind of a windshield wiper action. Use what you can to your advantage, okay? So that's one way with the foam roller. You can also take that lacrosse ball, I know some of you are already cringing, and do the same thing. Working right in that, where that IT band comes into that lateral quad, or lateral hamstring, and into the quad as well, right? So you're just trying to unstick all this stuff in here, okay? So that's the IT band, lateral hamstring, quad, all that area there. Super important to release that as well. The next thing we want to release is the hamstring attachment itself. So a lot of people don't realize how restricting that, when you're tightening the hamstring attachment, how that can restrict that external rotation or a lot of different movements from the hips, right? So where I'm talking about is right back here. So some of you, especially runners who have addressed this area, know what I'm talking about. You can do this sitting on the floor. I actually like to do this on a box. So I'm gonna see if I can get up here without you losing my head frame. So, and I actually like to use a softball. We talk about different tools. Softball, okay? So where we're going to sit on the ball is where your bone is. Everyone has sit bones, okay? They might be a little harder to find, but please find your sit bone and stick it just below that, okay? You'll know you're in the right spot, okay? And then from there, I'm just going to scrub side to side, back and forth. As I come more into the inner hamstring area, definitely pick up some spots that are tender in there. You'll know what I mean when you get there. You'll know the areas that you need to spend a little more time on. Okay, so this is getting that hamstring attachment and some of the adductor attachments as well, some of the inner thigh stuff. I come across a lot of people who are super tight in the inner thighs. definitely areas you want to address. That could be tightness because those inner thighs are overactive, but it can most certainly definitely be tightness because your external rotators are overactive, which is putting a lot of tension on the inner thigh itself. So try, if you're not sure which is the reason for your inner thigh tightness, if you have that, try releasing these external rotators first that I'm talking about and see what happens. Okay, so that's going to be getting your hamstring attachment. I want to do one more with you. So your pigeon pose. This is one. Let me grab my mat because I need a mat for my knees. This is one here that is really good for us, really good for our hips. But most people don't get into it. They can't get into it properly. They don't get into it properly. They just have a lot of external rotation issues, so it makes the stretch really hard. It makes you not want to do it. I, for one, am that person because it's pretty easy on my right side and not so easy on my left side. So I'm going to show you my left side today since that's my issue side. So we're going to get that leg up here. So already you can see my body wants to turn because that left hip doesn't externally rotate. Let me turn and go side or front ways to you. Okay, so I'm going to try to get my leg up here as best as possible, and I'm over the top of my leg. Okay, from there I'm going to take my other knee and I'm going to block my foot from moving. So here's my upright position. You see I'm kind of struggling with it. My pelvis wants to turn this direction. I'm having a hard time holding this. That's fine. This is going to be, I'm going to show you exactly like as far as I'm going to go with this to try to, open up the hip, and then gradually I'll go into the full pigeon pose. Okay, so from here, I'm going to just bend forward. I'm still in that upright position, and I'm going to stick my butt back, and I'm going to rotate away from that hip. Okay, so what that's doing is that stretching all through this back side of the hip without getting down in the pigeon pose and losing. Like I could sit here, that's fine, but this isn't really doing a lot for this left hip. It's just, I'm just kind of hanging out. So if I sit up tall and I block that leg and I really work on opening this hip, I'm going to get more out of the pigeon pose when I go all the way down to the ground. Okay, so that's another thing you can work on is blocking that leg, staying upright in the pigeon pose. There's so many different variations to a pigeon pose, and I've talked to many people who didn't even realize that they can do an upright pigeon pose, like do elevated. So you come up to a surface and do an elevated pigeon pose. That's essentially what I'm showing you, but I'm doing it down on the ground and blocking the leg I'm trying to stretch to try to get the most out of that stretch. So this is just another variation that you can use to get into a proper pigeon pose or to get the most out of your pigeon pose. Okay, I know that was a lot of information today. Hopefully you guys picked up some little tidbits that will help you with the cross-legged position, with getting down into your squat. Side note on that, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, some people might be thinking, well, shoot, I don't need to sit cross-legged. I don't need to get into a pigeon pose. What do I need to get a deep squat for? Have you guys ever picked anything up from the ground? That's a deep squat. Okay, I'll leave you with that thought. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm here to help. If you have any things you need help with, please let me know. I can address them next week, or I can just address them in a separate Facebook post.